Russian forces are picking up the pace of their activity around Orikhiv, and Ukrainian intelligence believes they're getting ready to push sabotage groups closer to the city. Over the past several days, movement in this sector has clearly increased. The thinking on the Ukrainian side is that Moscow's units are watching the weather, waiting for the kind of low visibility and difficult conditions that make it easier for small infiltration teams to slip toward the outskirts of Orikhiv without being spotted early. At the same time, the skies over the south haven't quieted down at all. Guided aerial bombs continue to fall on Orikhiv and the surrounding settlements almost every single day. In just the last 24 hours, close to 10 of these bombs struck the town itself. Zoom out to the wider southern front, and the numbers get even heavier. Russian forces are launching as many as 25 guided bomb strikes a day across the region, dropping something in the neighborhood of 100 of these weapons daily. The heaviest fighting on the entire front right now is concentrated in Pokrovsk, Sloviansk, and Lyman. These sectors have become the main pressure points where Russian forces are throwing the most resources at Ukrainian defensive lines. Looking at the broader picture of the last day of combat, the enemy carried out 105 airstrikes, releasing 291 guided bombs in total. On top of that, Russian forces sent out more than 7,000 kamikaze drones and carried out nearly 2,800 shelling attacks on populated areas and Ukrainian positions. More than 100 of those using multiple launch rocket systems. Ukraine's Air Force wasn't idle either. Over the same 24-hour, it struck 2 locations where Russian troops had gathered in concentration. And according to Ukrainian reporting, the total cost to Russian forces for the day came to roughly 1,490 personnel. Equipment losses included 8 tanks, 10 armored fighting vehicles, 74 artillery systems, 1 multiple launch rocket system, 4 air defense systems, 3 ground robotic systems, close to 1,300 drones, and 361 vehicles. Further north, in the northern Slobozhanshchyna and Kursk sectors, Russian forces carried out 2 airstrikes and dropped 5 guided bombs, along with 47 shelling attacks on Ukrainian positions and nearby towns. 3 of those using multiple launch rocket systems. Down in the southern Slobozhanshchyna sector, Ukrainian units came under attack 12 times, with fighting reported near Staritsya, Lyman, and Kozacha Lopan, as well as toward Novovasilyvka, Bily Kolodiazh, and Zarubinka.
Кто в завале, блядь? Надо +1. Блядь, помогите. Давай, братан. Заебись. Хорош. Вот он лежит. Под тобой прям. Под тобой.
Now let's move to a specific engagement that shows how these frontline ambushes actually play out on the ground. This one involves the 253rd Separate Assault Regiment RA, part of the Ukrainian Volunteer Army. Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance operators noticed something unusual. A Russian drone flying in and dropping a package of supplies to infantry positions below. Instead of striking immediately, the Ukrainian team held back and waited. They wanted the soldier to come out into the open. Eventually, one of the Russian troops left cover to retrieve the delivery. That's the moment the Ukrainian operators had been waiting for. They sent in a strike FPV drone. The soldier realized what was happening and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The drone tracked him down. What started as a routine resupply mission ended as a direct hit. The outcome about as predictable as it gets once that drone was in the air. Shifting now to the diplomatic side of the war, President Volodymyr Zelensky sat down in Kyiv with U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, Graham's 10th visit to Ukraine since the full-scale invasion began. That number alone says something about how consistently he stayed engaged with the country through the war. Zelensky thanked the senator for recognizing the sacrifices of Ukrainian soldiers and framed the relationship between battlefield performance and diplomacy in a pretty direct way. The stronger Ukraine's position on the ground, the more leverage there is at the negotiating table. Right now, one of Kyiv's top priorities is convincing partner nations to layer on new long-range sanctions against Russia, and Graham updated the president on where that legislation currently stands in Congress. The two men also spent time on Ukraine's air defense needs, which remain urgent. Zelensky pointed back to an agreement reached at the NATO summit in Ankara, a political understanding between Ukraine and the U.S. president on licensing Ukraine to produce Patriot air defense systems domestically. As Zelensky put it, is making sure that agreement actually gets implemented by the teams responsible for carrying it out. He also acknowledged the ongoing bipartisan support Ukraine has received from both chambers of the U.S. Congress. Meanwhile, NATO had to scramble fighter jets in two member countries after a fresh wave of Russian strikes hit Ukraine. Poland and Romania, both of which border Ukraine, directly launched aircraft as a precaution while the attacks were underway. This came right after Russia issued a pointed warning to the United Kingdom. Russia's ambassador to the UK said there would be serious consequences over the use of British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles after Ukraine reportedly used them to strike a facility in Bryansk. The ambassador argued that Britain's role was essential to that strike happening at all and suggested London was using the moment to project strength, drawing a comparison to recent American and Israeli actions against Iran. He framed the UK's involvement as an attempt to assert itself as a leading player among Russia's adversaries, while warning that everyone connected to the Bryansk strike would face consequences. Russia used its long-range strategic bombers as part of this operation, which is what triggered the NATO jet scramble in Poland. Poland's operational command confirmed that Polish and Allied aircraft began operating over Ukrainian airspace in response to the activity of Russian long-range aviation. Separately, and a few hours earlier, 2 F-16S were scrambled in Romania after Russian drones struck near the Danube River along the Ukraine-Romania border. In terms of what actually got through, Ukraine's Air Force said it shot down 25 of the 34 missiles Russia fired and intercepted or disrupted 365 of the 426 drones launched in that wave. On a related note, another Russian assault involved 13 missiles and 115 drones. Of those, Ukrainian forces managed to shoot down 7 missiles and 95 drones. Breaking that down further, Russia used 9 Kh-59 guided air-to-ground missiles and 4 Kh-31 anti-radiation missiles launched from the south, alongside 115 Shahed-type strike drones and various decoy drones types like Gerber, Ilmaz, and Parody designed to confuse Ukrainian air defenses. 2 Kh-59 missiles and 19 attack drones got through, striking 12 separate locations, and debris from downed drones was recovered at another 12 sites. In Rodensky sector, cruise-flying Su-27 fighter jets carried out a precision strike on a building where Russian forces had gathered a concentration of assault troops. Ukrainian intelligence had detected the buildup ahead of time and passed the coordinates along to the Air Force. The resulting strike destroyed the building along with the personnel inside. In a separate operation, MiG-29 crews targeted a logistics route being used by Russian forces, dropping 2 precision-guided GBU bombs on the road. Ukrainian Operational Command and Intelligence had tracked the timing closely, and the strike hit right as a Russian convoy was moving along that stretch. Vehicles and personnel included cutting off one of the logistics routes the Russian military had been relying on. And finally, in Kostiantynivka, Ukraine ran a coordinated operation combining aircraft and drone strikes against a Russian troop gathering. It started when aerial reconnaissance teams from the 156th Separate Mechanized Brigade located a building being used to house enemy personnel. They passed those coordinates to the Air Force, which carried out a precision strike that destroyed the building. Afterward, during a follow-up reconnaissance flight, drone operators spotted a Russian soldier moving near the wreckage and eliminated him with an FPV strike drone.